because as we know, that term has just been used now to talk about, to label anybody that is even,
it's an anti-white slur.
Yeah, and even remotely, conservative, for example, who has any kind of, even just in many ways to the left of centre bent now on some political issues. I saw an account on X the other day. It made me laugh. It was truly hilarious. They were labeling Labour as right wing. That's how some of these think that. That's how some of these people think. And, and as you mentioned, they use terms like far right, fascist, Nazi, all of this stuff, not because it's accurate, because in many ways they want to justify getting rid of you. And if you, because if you are, in theory, I think it's what most people would say, is that if you were facing a political threat which wanted to not relinquish the reins of power in a democratic fashion, wanted to take over in this massive way and institute this, completely anti-democratic, tyrannical system, which in many ways pretty much what we're seeing at the moment anyway, it's just on the communist end. The logical point really would be, to pick up arms and go and deal with the threat, because this is seemingly a threat to your very existence. That's what I think. That's where most people would be, and that's where they use these terms deliberately, not because it's accurate. And in many ways, then for people who would be who may not agree politically with those people and would be concerned about the rise of really, really right wing figures, it'd be like, well, all you've done is you've given the people you're supposedly against in the most extreme, so the people who are very, very right wing, for example, you've given them the perfect cover. This is where people not even be able to see, beyond the end of their nose sometimes. It's like, by saying this, by labeling everybody as far right or Nazi or whatever, for the actual people that do support that ideology within it, you've basically given them the perfect cover. You know what I mean? You've given them a treat.
I'd say, I'd say it's intentional, removing, essentially like what they... It's a tactic to remove the moderates, to remove the moderate position as a whole, to try and force people into this situation where all you can do is be violent, basically. If they take away your speech, if they take away all these different things, they're trying to force you in a situation where it's either like you can either just take what you're given, or you can go out and do something about it. It's at least what they're trying to do. I don't think it's necessary, to be violent in any way. We have a right to defend ourselves, absolutely, but at the same time, we shouldn't be attempting to, overtly try and be violent unless it's absolutely necessary in self-defense.
Yes, agreed.
But definitely, mate, they're trying to remove the whole. They're trying to remove the sane minds and make sure that. Make sure you've only got the radicals there, because that's easier for them to deal with then. I mean, they don't have to actually address the points of the problems. I think it's in some ways kind of a form of procrastination, like the number one issues for the nation should be a checklist for the government, but the government doesn't do any of the things on that checklist. I know it's not, procrastination isn't the issue, isn't the deeper issue, but I don't know. It's an aspect maybe.
Yeah, fairness, because the government, the one thing with regards to the agendas it wants to push through, it hasn't procrastinated one bit. You know what I mean? It's been, like I wanted to change an address the other day, and the online service, it wanted to take me through to that. I think it's the Gov UK One login or something. Right. The one login system. And I'm like, no, I don't like this, because I see what they're doing with digital ID. I see how they're trying to bring all this in. I'm like, so I'm literally, after we finish now, going to go get a form from a post office, going back and doing things the old-fashioned way, as its own kind of rebellion. But especially with the Labour government, especially, it seems as though they were doing everything the Conservatives were doing. And I like the meme. It's just this: it's faster, harder, and without lube is the way that they're doing it. They're pushing
through to rush things through. Yeah.
They're pushing through all of the same agendas, just so much faster and so much more forcefully. With an iron fist. And in many ways, I dread to think what the 2029 landscape is gonna look like. Either the Politburo might have collapsed by then under the weight of its own corruption and degeneracy. I don't know, because I don't really see reform, at least on the national scale, as being really any much different, if anything. I mean, I think they've even taken not only Conservative defectors, but Labour defector. I think they took one Labour defector in, which was very, very concerning. And I think that's why when people are seeing you mentioned this. It's like they're trying to put people in this situation where it's like you either take what you're given or you have to resort to other means to get yourself out of it. It's like, again, an animal being backed into a corner. You back a dog into a corner, and you give it no, a route of escape, even in a way that's not going to result in some kind of conflict. It only has one option left for its survival, right? And I think that's what you're seeing now with protests, with outside of these hotels, with demonstrations, with raising the colors, all of these, flag raisings and so on, is that people are realizing they're being pushed into this corner and they have nothing left to do. Yeah. Especially when it was only a month ago that a guy got shot for having conversations at a table in America. You know what I mean? They shot the moderate.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a big. I think it was radicalizing moments every single week, really. But there was the Arenas Arutska murder where somebody, a white girl, was murdered for being white, and all these people that are refugees welcome here were absolutely silent for that girl who was a refugee. Why? Because she was white, and that's the deeper story. Do you know what I mean? You can tell the deeper intentions and stories of these people by what they say and what they don't say. You know what I mean? It's as loud, they are as loud sometimes when they don't speak. And that was one of those instances. And you're right. They shot the moderate position. They got him. It's crazy what they did to that bloke, man. He's a father and a brother and a son. But yeah, so we're in a position now where they want us to just flip out and just kind of chimp out and do a bunch of irrational things. I think we're in a very unique position now where everybody's waking up to what's going on. They're waking up to the fact that we've tried democracy. We've tried messaging, or sorry, not messaging, like sending letters to our local MP. We've tried all these, we tried voting. We've tried sitting down and being quiet. We've tried everything that they've said to us to do. Just accept this, accept that. Everybody's done it to a degree. Everybody's sat and accepted what's been pushed towards us. And we're getting to a point now where I think people are realizing it's not working. Sitting down and waiting for this to blow over is not working. We're going to be a minority in this country in 2050. Children being born now are already a minority in this country. Birmingham, Bradford, all these different cities. And what's happening to the nation is not going away. It's getting worse, and it's a crisis every single day. Yep. And I think people are just realizing, we don't need to live like this. We've had our compassion taken advantage of. We don't need to live like this at all. Everybody that we've brought into this nation, or has been brought into this nation against the will of the people, has an illegitimate claim to their stake in this land, because we never agreed to it. We were never asked. And we have a right to a homeland. So as simple as that, man. I mean, that's what my whole push really is, to try and get people to come together as a community, because we can come together as communities. All these social media, everything, just stop. Just go outside and speak to your local people. And that's the only way we can start building the real networks that we need to change this stuff, I don't know what you think. Let me know what you think about that. I'm interested to hear, because...
No, the one thing I've noticed, particularly with you guys, and I spoke with, obviously, Josh Fernie a couple of months ago, and he mentioned the focus was on community politics and stuff like that, and it certainly is having a massive effect when they're seeing these people who the media tells people all of these horrible things, Nazis, neo-Nazis, whatever, all of these other labels they want to use, and then they're going out, Callum Barker at the moment in England, they building some kind of pool for a young girl in their community who I believe is physically disabled in some way. So it's like
I think it's a therapy pool. Isn't it?
To aid her. Therapy pool. It's like showing him, carrying the banners, carrying the signs home afterwards when you see the Stand Up to Racism protests, because they don't care. It's not a grassroots thing. It's not a thing that people actually genuinely believe in. They leave the placards. They leave the placards all over the place. There's litter everywhere. They leave it like an absolute dumpster fire war zone, whereas they see these actual people, again, who they've been told these disgusting, evil people, but they're cleaning them after their communities. They're trimming branches away from overgrown, footpaths, so that, the council, they're not doing anything seemingly, because they a lot of the time seemingly with your local politicians and with your MPs, whatever, it's just the cash fat checks, it seems. They're not doing anything. And then it's people taking matters into their own hands, but doing it in a way that's actually benefiting their community. And I do think that resonates with people a lot, because one of the things which people see, particularly with me and like with, my political representation and so on, it seems as that the current political representatives we have, they're not seen any way that it would matter unless there's some kind of photo op, unless there's some kind of ways to, promote it or whatever. At least that's the way that it seems to me. In a way that I think it seems to a lot of other people as well. So when they see people, they don't care whether the cameras are on or off. Going into their local communities, talking with people, making the individuals' lives better within their communities, and I think that really, really does resonate with people a lot. Absolutely.
Yeah, right. Callum has for years literally just been grafting in the community, litter picking, helping the elderly, just being a good bloke. And you look at him, and he's just like, he's a great guy. Callum is a great guy, and I think that foundation of what Callum had, the name for himself that he'd built in his local community. He's the bloke that goes around and helps people and does litter picks and cares about his local community. That foundation is why they had so much success in Epping. And I don't know, it's hard to quantify the success, but the movement that was Epping and how it affected the whole nation, how that sparked off the whole nation, very organic. And right at the center of that is Callum Barker. And literally, I hate using the word literally, but the work he put in, that's the foundation, right? But you can't just have community politics. You can't just have, I'm going to go plant trees or whatever. It has to align with political movements. You have to contest the enemy. You have to contest our competitors. You've got to beat them to the punch. And that's what you saw in Epping was Callum beating Reform, beating Conservatives, beating everyone to the punch, right? And it was him. It was just him, and he didn't need anybody. It's just Callum. You know what I mean? And he's political savvy. He knows everything you need to know about these things. And suddenly you have Reform trying to come in. Suddenly you have the Conservative. I mean, the Conservatives is the worst, really, because
like
at least Reform
circling. They're circling like vultures. You know what I mean?
At least, exactly. At least Reform can pretend, or not even pretend, but at least they can say, "Oh, in the future we'll deal with this," or whatever. That But the Conservatives, man, I remember doing like a speech, and everyone hates them so much. Like the Tories, like either side of the aisle, and they try and come there, and you can see them. They're sheepish. They're like, will people accept me talking the absolute tat that I'm about to talk in complete hypocrisy? How I stood there for years and allowed this to happen, and I'm not addressing that fact. How I openly voted for the Boris wave. For instance, and that's one bloke in Reform, right? I forget his name. He used to be Conservative. He's quite heavy set. Todd.
Maybe see if I can find an image of the guy that you're on about. Lee Anderson?
Yes, yeah. So he was talking about mass immigration or whatever. I just looked on his voting record, which is publicly available. He voted for the Boris wave. He voted for the millions of people, non-EU immigration that comes in every year. He voted for that. But then, not to get too far away from the point, but what happened in Epping is an excellent example of beating your competitors and the enemy to the punch. And if you can do that, if I can do that, if everyone around the country can do that and start beating these politicians and the people that can inflict power to the punch and not letting them get their foothold in, we get our foothold in first, and they have to come and beg us for the crumbs. That's a semblance of the starting of a strategy, right? Where you can start to inflict some real change,
There's a massive mountain to climb, and not to mention the battles that are going on as well. But it's quite literally, you don't climb a mountain without getting a foothold first. You don't climb up a big rock surface without getting a foothold first. And it's exactly where you're saying in. Exactly with Callum, it's almost like the protests in Epping, they just flew up kind of organically because people, again, they can see what's going on, right? They can see that the government's not doing anything about it, exactly as you said. You don't need to try and make the case that the Conservatives are going to be accepted, especially in an area like mine. You say Conservative, instantly it brings up memories of like Iron Lady Thatcher and the miners and so on, right?
I doubt there's many votes in your area for the for the Tories.
No, and that's what I think, especially, I think people often use the term conservative in value, not necessarily conservative in party name, conservative in values, being like British society or Scottish society, English society, Welsh society. It has things worth conserving about it. And that's where the biggest thing is, where the nationalist sentiment comes from, is where then they can see that it's being given away to people who you mentioned, essentially even got here, not even 5 minutes ago, not even a couple of days ago, simply because our politicians want a voting bloc because of the goodwill, because of the things which they've eliminated with the people that they were supposedly serving, because they betrayed them at every single turn. I guess where, again, you see with the Conservatives, it's almost like they have more vitriol and hatred for the Conservatives because they come in as supposedly going to solve these problems, and they made them worse at every turn. Whereas I think most people would say they knew what to expect with a party like Labour, for example, on these issues. They knew what to expect. But with the Conservatives, you'd hope that they were there to actually solve the problems, and it's quite clear that they weren't. If you enjoyed that clip, then make sure to go on over to the Voice of the Valleys X page at VOT_Valleys on X. We're also on Instagram at Voice of the Valleys. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, comment, all of that good stuff. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon. Godspeed.